Hi, this is Anupinder Singh from Superwits Academy. In this video, we are going to discuss about the basic steps that every example of package org.cloudburst.cloudsim.examples implement. Now, this is the first step toward understanding the basic working of the CloudSim simulation framework and how we can implement our own research in this particular simulation framework. But before I start, I just want to let you know that to understand this particular framework code, if you have at least an intermediate level of Java language understanding, this will be good enough for you. Or if in case you are not as proficient in Java, you must at least possess some of the understanding about how object-oriented programming languages work, right? So if you have that basic understanding of OOPS, it will not be difficult for you to understand that how this simulation framework work, right? So let's get started. Every particular simulation example will as a specific series of steps. Now those steps will be like in the sequence, and there are exactly 11 steps that are being used by the particular set of example. So first step is you need to set up that how many users are there in your how many users will be there in your simulation process. So first thing is set number of users, and this will directly correlate with the broker count, right? And then second thing is you need to initialize the simulation common variables. So you are supposed to take care about initialization of common variables, right? And these common variables may be any set of lists or something like that. So I will be explaining that in my further demonstration. And once you initialize these variables, along with that, the object of CIS is also created. Then fourth thing is, once you are done with the creation of CIS, you need to create the data center, right? So next step is data center will be created. Now when you send a request for creation of data center, this particular step will create hosts plus their characteristics. Now these characteristics can be what is their processing element size, then what is their RAM, and then what is their bandwidth utilization, etc., right? So once you are done with creation of your data center instance, now this data center will be registered with CIS in the later stage when we do a star simulation process, right? So before that we need to create another thing, that is the data center broker instance. Now this data center broker will deal with the communication between the data center and the summation of cloudlets and the VMs, right? So this is a very important thing. So if you doesn't create this, your simulation will not work properly. Now next part which you are supposed to create is the virtual machine instances, right? And these virtual machine instances again have the same parameter characteristics to be defined, but on the low level, right? Now next thing comes as once the machines are created, their virtual machines are created, they are supposed to be submitted to broker, right? So once you submit your VM list to the broker, then you are supposed to do one more thing. Now basic underlying infrastructure has been created till this place. Now you need to specify the cloudlets, right? So these cloudlets are basically tasks, right? And these tasks are created with certain parameters again, that is MIPS requirement, bandwidth requirement, and so on, right? Then once the cloudlets are created, they can be a single cloudlet, they can be more than one cloudlet, right? So once the cloudlets are created, you submit these cloudlets to broker. Now the broker has both the things, cloudlets as well as virtual machines. So cloudlets will be mapped to the virtual machines by the broker itself, right? So once every submission is done, every instance or of all the entities are created, then next step is to start the simulation. And once the simulation is started and is over, you call a stop simulation process. And then at last, the additional point, you need to print the status of the simulation, right? So this is what you have. So there are around 12 steps which we have reviewed here, and these 12 steps are implemented in all the examples with little changes in the code and in the working of the example, right? So let's come back to the code. Now if you see, this particular example has a package name, right? And then some particular comment is given. Then there is a list of import classes, and these are the basic Java classes, and these are the CloudSim classes, right? And if you see, this particular example includes the cloudlet. Scheduler is the time shared scheduler which will be used for cloudlet scheduling. Then there is a data center is included, then data center broker is included, then data center characteristics is there, host is there, log is to be printed, processing element is also included, storage is also included, utilization models is also included, and that is more specific to the utilization model full. Then VM corresponding to that allocation and scheduler policies are included. CloudSim class is included, which is the heart and brain of this particular simulation tool, and the provisioner classes are included, which we have all checked out in the last video, right? So here they started with the CloudSimExample1, which is basically a class, and this particular class has two main static private variables. One is cloudlet list and one is the VM list. So that means whatever the number of cloudlets are submitted to this particular example will be maintained in this list, and whatever the VMs created and maintained in this particular example will be submitted in this particular list. So they will be maintained in these two lists. Then if you come at the section, or if you come at the structure of this particular example, there are four basic methods which are defined. One is create broker, create data center, print cloudlet list, and the main function, main method, right? So this main method is the one which is executed first. Now we start with this main method only, and we go into other methods when they are called. So a log will be a particular message will be printed which says start CloudSim simulation, CloudSim example 1. Then if you see here, we have specified the number of users, right? So this is a integer variable. Then we have specified an instance of calendar and trace flag variable. Now this variable is just for the sake of trace printing and something, but this is not used exactly. So this might be kept for the future use, right? So these three things will be passed in CloudSim.init method. Now if you go in the declaration of this particular method, you will see that this particular method will further call init common variable. Now this method is implemented in CloudSim class, right? So CloudSim class is in source and in CloudSim core, and this is the CloudSim class where it has been implemented. Now this CloudSim class in turn calls init common variable method. Now if you go inside that init common variable method, you will see that it initializes the trace flag of this particular class, then it initializes the calendar, and then it initializes the CloudSim shutdown class, right, with the parameter as the name and the number of users which are there, and then the ID will be generated for that particular CloudSim class. So this is what exactly done when you init or initialize the cloud simulation, right? So if you come back to the init function only, then you will see that the cloud information service object is created with some name, right, and the ID is extracted from that, right? So this is basically the entity. The CloudSim information is also an entity, and the shutdown CloudSim shutdown is also an entity. So you are supposed to create the entity, as we have studied in our first video, that there are few entities which are components which are required for the working of or the maintenance of the CloudSim simulation, right? So everything is initiated in this particular method. Now once this is done, you are supposed to create one data center, right? So if you come back to this place, you will see that we have set the number of users, which is basically equivalent to number of brokers which are there. Then initialize the common variables, create a CIS instance, and then you create the data center. Now it's here we said that when we create a data center, we create host, right? So CloudSim create host for them. So that particular process is defined inside this create data center method. Now when you go inside the declaration of this method, you will see that a new host list is created and the new processing element list is also created. Now we have specified that the capacity, the computing capacity of the processing element will be 1000 MIPS, and that will be passed into the PE list. So you create a new instance of processing element by passing the MIPS in PE provisioner simple class, right? So if you go inside this PE provisioner simple class, you will see that it sets some table, right? So this is how the new processing element is created. Now once this is created, you create a host. So that means this processor will be housed in some kind of host. So host is also having some certain characteristics. So here we have provided the host ID, then RAM, that means 2 GB is provided to this particular host. Then storage, that means this storage is in bytes, so this is close to 10 GB, and then this bandwidth is also provided, and then you create list of hosts. So you provide the host ID, you provide the RAM provisioner simple, that means best effort policy is there. Here is also the best effort policy is implemented. For bandwidth also you have best effort policy implemented here. Then you have specified the exact secondary storage that this host will hold. Then processing lists, so processing element lists, so that means you have added only one processor. In some example you will see that this list will have more than one processing element, so that means that will resemble either dual core, quad core, or some more cores in that. So each processing element will resemble the cores, right, which are available in host. Then you have also specified that the PE list will follow the time shared policy in VM scheduler, right? So whenever VM are supposed to be allocated with processing element, they will be allocated with the processor by maintaining the policy which is specified in VM scheduler time shared, right? Then for the sake of information or clarity of what kind of architecture it is, we have specified this is x86 architecture and operating system is Linux, and the VMM which is installed on this particular data center will be XN. Then time zone is this, so you can change your time zone. The cost for processing, the cost for using processing in this resource will be 3. Cost per memory, per resource memory will be this. Cost per storage will be this. So everything is provided here. So these are basically the characteristics that are associated with the metering services, right? So then if you see, we also have a list of storages. So this is basically for resembling the SAN storages, right? But we are not adding any SAN storage right now. So this is just for the sake of, so that data center characteristics can be set without any issue. So if you see here, we have characteristics which are provided with all the parameters which are defined in here, right? So we have host list, which we have already added here. We have VMM, we have OS, we have architecture of the machine, we have time zone, cost per memory, and everything is there. So once these data center characteristics are built, then only you will be able to create the data center. So that means for creating the data center of this particular simulation, you first need to specify the processing elements, then you need to specify the host which will house the processing element, and then those host list will be clubbed with the characteristics of the data center, which helps in maintaining the metering as well as geographical information, and then you actually will be able to set up the data center instance. So this data center instance will have some name which you have already specified as a parameter, and if you go back and see in main function, you have specified data center 0 as the name, right? So this is how your whole data center instance will be created. So you have specified the name, characteristics, and the allocation policy, VM allocation policy. So here we have followed the simple allocation policy, so that means best effort policy will be maintained. Then storage list is also provided here, and at the last there is one more parameter which specifies, I believe this specifies the scheduling interval, right? So here we have specified that scheduling interval as 0. So once this whole instance is created, you return it from this function to the main function and store that instance in data center 0. Now the next thing comes is, we have said that once this particular data center instance is created, then you need to create the data center broker instance. So if you see that, so we have created the data center broker instance. If you go inside this particular method create broker, you will see that a new instance with the name of the broker is created. So name provided here is just only broker, right? And that this instance is returned from this create broker method to the main method, right? And here if you see, we are next creating the VM, right? So VM has some parameters, that is VM ID, the MIPS requirement of that virtual machine, then size. This size is of the image size, which is to be maintained. The maximum size is provided here. Then we have RAM, that is 512. Now bandwidth, that is 1000, and PES number. This is the requirement of processing elements by this virtual machine which we are going to create. Now next, it associates this particular virtual machine with some VMM. So this virtual machine manager is specified here as Zen. So this is just a string value just to maintain that okay, we are working for this particular virtual machine manager only, right? And you create a particular virtual machine. Now here you specify that how the cloudlets will be scheduled. So if you see here, we have a time shared policy implemented for this particular VM. So whatever cloudlets are assigned to this particular virtual machine, they will be executed on the basis of time shared environment, right? So once it is done, you add VM to the list and then you submit the VM list to the broker. Now once the broker is created, once the VM list is created, next task is to create the cloudlets, right? So we have already created the data center broker instance, virtual machine is created, submitted, and virtual machine is submitted to broker. Now next thing is to create the cloudlets. Now if you see, cloudlets have some length of instruction, size of file, and the output size of the file which can be there, right? So these are just the speculation for your application. So in this you specify the utilization model is to be used as full. Then you create the instance of cloudlet, you provide ID which is already given here 0, you started with 0 index, then length is there, PES number is there, right? So you specify it as per what is defined in your virtual machine. Then file size is also there, file output size of this particular application is also there, also provided in this instance. Then now these three models, right? Utilization model, if you see, this is the full utilization model. So if you see, these will be the three different utilization models. So one is for the CPU, that means first is for the CPU, second is for the RAM, and third is for the bandwidth. So you specify different model for all these three parameters: full utilization of CPU, full utilization of your RAM, and full utilization of your bandwidth, right? So once your cloudlet instance is created, you set its broker ID and you set its VM ID. These two things are optional, and at last you submit your cloud list to your particular broker, right? So once this is done, so till this place you are just preparing for simulation, right? You are just specifying that these are the cloudlets, this is the VM which is to be allocated on host, and this host will be in that particular data center, and so on. Now actual process starts here. When you call the start simulation function, your whole simulation starts working. They process the events as per specified by the broker, right? So once the simulation is over, the stop simulation method will be called, so that every entity must be shut down. So entity here is data center broker, CIS, that is cloud information service, and shutdown, CloudSim shutdown entity, right? So all these entities will be stopped here. And last, once everything is done, you print the cloudlet list and you get out of this particular method execution, right? So this is how your whole simulation process goes on in step by step. So if I execute this, I will get an output of like this. I believe it will take some time because it is building up. Now as you see, we have the output here. It says start CloudSim example 1 initializing. So that means here it was creating the CIS and the shutdown part and initializing the common variable. Then when we start the simulation, it says starting CloudSim version 3.0. Then data center 0 is started, broker is started, all the entities are started till this place. Then the cloudlet cloud resource list is received by the broker. That means the data center which was registered with CIS will be used will be used by the broker, and then it tries to create the VM. Then it get the message that VM has been created in data center, and data center which has the ID 2 and host whose ID is 0. Then broker started sending the cloudlet 0 to VM 0. Then cloudlet 0 is received. That means the at 400 seconds. Now this particular thing says at what time the following process has been done. So at 400.1 time, the broker has received the cloudlet 0 status, right? So after execution, so again all the cloudlets execution has been finished. Once the execution has been finished, the VM will be destroyed, the broker will be shut down, the simulation has no more future events. So that means there is no need to continue the simulation. So Cloud Information Service is notified that all these CloudSim entities must be shut down. Then data center 0 is shut down, then broker is shut down, and simulation is completed. So once the simulation is completed, you print an output where you says that cloudlet ID 0, whose execution status is success, was executed on data center whose entity ID is 2, VM ID who is which is the first VM, and the index is 0. It took 400 units of time, and the execution of this cloudlet started at 0.1 unit, and the finish time of this particular cloudlet is 400.1, right? And once this is printed, this whole status is printed, your CloudSim example is example 1 is finished. So this is how you can understand each and every example in your CloudSim. So I did in this way. I tried to correlate it by going to different definitions of each method call, and then I tried to correlate that how this code is working and so on. So this is what exact process you can also follow to understand this CloudSim project, and this is the only way you can understand it. Otherwise there is no particular description which has been provided with respect to the code, except this particular documentation with of the API which has been provided within this particular CloudSim project. So I hope this video will help you more to understand this CloudSim simulation environment, and more to understand the process, that how the sequence of steps are happening in this particular cloud simulation tool. With this I will be signing off. Thanks for watching, and keep watching. There will be another video after this particular one, right? So thank you very much. Goodbye.